Good morning, listeners, and welcome back to the Internet Marketing and Business Solutions radio show with your host, Ronald Couming, of both RCS Technology Solutions and RCS Online Solutions, where we help business owners and entrepreneurs, much like yourself, achieve even greater success by attracting, converting, and retaining their ideal customers and clients using various Internet marketing techniques and methods. Today, we're blessed to have with us a great guest, but I want to give you a little bit of an outline of what the purpose of this show is. Depending upon the format will vary weekly, and it will depend on whether we have one or two guests. I always try to bring on subject matter experts from around the globe who have a proven business model and a lot of success in business, because I think it really helps the entrepreneurs in their early stages, in middle stages, and even if they've been in business for quite a while and they want to scale up, to listen and learn to people who have already been there and done that. You'll hear a lot of really successful people talk about seeking counsel and not advice. So you want to deal with people who have had success in your field or a field very similar to yours, And so that's what we do. We bring on subject matter experts to help you navigate the entrepreneurial world, so to speak, and avoid some of the pitfalls. And if you're unfortunate enough to have gotten into a pitfall, which we all do, one or more of the things you hear hopefully will help you alleviate some of the bruises from those pitfalls. And then lastly, I'll give out tips on something that will help you grow your online marketing, attract new clients and leads, and just so you can serve more people. And today, in our second section, I will talk to you about 5 tips to increase your video marketing in 2019. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce our first guest today, who is Scott Kelly, and he is the founder and CEO of Black Dog Venture Partners. And he is a 25-year fundraising, marketing, sales, training, and publicity veteran. Scott has raised millions of dollars in capital for disruptive companies, garnered national media attention for hundreds of regional and national brands, and generated millions of dollars in revenues for the companies he has represented. He has also trained over 1,000 salespeople and has taught marketing at the university level at the United States and Europe. Scott is also the producer of a VC Fast Pitch, a conference that connects disruptive startups with the world's top investors, which is very important. Scott, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. Thanks, Ron.
Excellent. Thank you. Can you tell us where you're calling in from?
I'm calling right now from Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow. And just so the listeners know, I mean, it is truly a digital world. The radio station is right outside of Boston in Lowell, Mass. You're in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm in San Francisco. I'm calling in from San Fran. I was just
the power
at 2
of technology.
events. Yeah, I love it. And one of the things we'll talk about in a bit is the Fast Pitch program that you've helped put together and sponsored for City Summit. And I just attended that in San Francisco on Saturday. Then I had another event Sunday, and I got like 8 events I'm doing between now and December 16th. But with technology, we can do, and this is kind of disruptive too. So, you talked about how you help people with disruptive technology. Needing to be in the office, is almost a thing of the past for some positions. So when you talk about your disruptive technology and how you help people, can you tell us a little bit about that? And also, your bio is very impressive, but I'm sure it didn't cover everything. So if you could tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and also, what is disruptive technology?
Sure, Ron. And, just a quick backgrounder. I spent, you're in San Francisco now. I spent about 15 years in the San Francisco Bay Area first as an investment banker, raising billions of dollars, quite frankly, for some of the leading technology companies of today. And then set up my own technology incubator during the dot-com era, and had a number of successful exits from 93 to 2000. And much like then, the same as now. I mean, technology is constantly evolving. Back then, the internet was at its beginning stages, and that was really where everything was going from a disruption standpoint. And now today, you have AI, you have robotics, you have obviously mobility, and other industries that are really the forefront of technology. And the thing is, there's incredible entrepreneurs throughout the country and throughout the world developing leading edge technology in any and all industries. But the thing we try to do is make sure that they get the capital and the resources necessary to develop that technology and be disruptive.
I love it. And capital, money is like oxygen to a startup. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I was fortunate enough to be able to have several of my startups really, quite frankly, start from my spare bedroom, and through the help of investors and others, were able to take them to the point where they became successful and had successful exits, either in the public markets or through an acquisition.
I love it. And you just, what I really love, what you just touched on, and it just, all of a sudden, I got goosebumps, because you started some successful businesses in your bedroom. Amazon was started in a garage. Jeff Bezos' first desk was a couple of milk crates with a door that was off its hinges laid across a couple of milk crates. So that was his first desk, and now he's like $150 billion or something. Microsoft, when we think about the biggest technologies out there, even like we both know, Alex Stern, his was started up in an attic with a couple of other co-founders and Infusions, and so many other companies that are really at the cutting edge today. So what I'd like the listeners to know, and you can talk about that too, is when you have a great idea, sometimes it's just about, you don't have to create something from the very beginning. You see something that people are doing but are not doing it as efficiently, and are not providing the best service, or they're not doing it as efficiently, like Blockbuster did, and Netflix came in, and Airbnb to the hotel industry. These are all examples of disruptive technology. But I love what you just said, and I'm happy you got out in 2000 and didn't hang around till 2001. But you literally, you started in your bedroom. So if people have a dream, man, I mean, nothing is impossible. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And I tell people, when we have companies present to investors, we tell them that they really have to identify three core goals. Is one, to solve a problem, and it's important to identify that problem. How big is it? How important is it? And then you really have to identify what your solution is and why your solution is better. Much like you mentioned, is it cheaper? Is it faster? Does it provide better technology? And the great thing is that there's entrepreneurs doing that every day. But the most important thing is, obviously, once you've identified that problem and identified your solution and why it's better, you really have to determine how you're going to make money, solving that problem. And I think and that's really where execution, comes into play. I think entrepreneurs are a rare breed. They don't, the old adage that you get to work 100 hours a day, so you don't have to have a 40-hour a week job. So it's that's always the case when you're an entrepreneur. But you're right. It's really about being able to have the stamina to find that problem and find that solution.
Yeah, that's true, and that's so funny, because you're right. When people see people that are really successful today, that's usually 5 or 10 or 15 years in the making. Once in a while you'll see that unicorn story where somebody will come in and in a year or 18 months be bought out for $100 million or $1 billion or something. But that is super rare, and that's why you hear about it, because it's so rare. But you're right. I mean, entrepreneurs, we will work 60, 80 or 100 hours in a week just so we don't have to work that 40 for someone else.
Right.
All right. So if somebody was now, venture capital is huge, and now if somebody wanted to pitch, and I know like you helped out and put together this entire event with the VC part of it, the Fast Pitch in San Francisco, and then another one's coming up in San Diego. I'll be attending that later this week too. I'm flying out of San Francisco down there Wednesday night. But so can you tell us a little bit, not just about the event. I mean, we want to hear about the events, and people should come, even if they're not looking for venture capital. Come and look. The whole event has a bunch of things going on, and the fast pitch is part of it. But when you listen to other people and their ideas and how they're presenting, it will spark thoughts in your mind, and will help you perfect your own presentation skills. If you, being a venture capitalist, if somebody is looking for capital, what are some of the things? And I know you kind of spoke about you have to see a problem and how you're going to make money, but how can they do that more successfully? What can they focus on? Hearing what the actual VCs want to hear, opposed to what the person might want to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I really want to make sure I really clarify. When we talk about venture capitalists and our VC fast pitch events, it's VC fast pitch is the name of the event, but we also have angel investors, high net worth individuals, and a number of strategic investors that attend these events and participate. So again, I think a couple of things. Obviously, once you identify problem, solution, how you make money, like I spoke about before, you need to be able to succinctly and concisely share your dream and your passion with somebody. We set up these fast pitch events where they either do a 5-minute presentation, or in some cases only get a 1-minute elevator pitch. And I have found, through being on both sides of the capital raising industry, that you have to be able to clearly and concisely and quickly identify what you want to accomplish to investors, because investors like myself are quite honestly seeing hundreds to thousands of pitches and presentations a year. And I tell everybody, if you can't succinctly identify to an investor what you can do in 1 minute or 5 minutes, the likelihood you're going to get 30 minutes or an hour is very small. And so I think even if you're not raising money, I'm a big believer, before you do fundraising, you have to do friend raising. So when you go to these events, you make relationships with investors. You make relationships with strategic partners, because even if you don't need to raise money at this point, at some point you may want to, and it's better to have those relationships established before you need them.
I love it, and that's so huge. And I've seen it, and I know when I first started in business many years ago, I would go into events, and I would be looking for people to actually sell to right then and there. And I learned, after, a couple of years, and I had success, but, it was nowhere near the potential that I could have. When I started focusing on serving people instead of selling them, and building relationships, and certainly building them before you need them. Just you go to the events and you talk, how can I help you? That's so huge. So what are, and I know my business has tripled, and I'm every year my lowest has been 50+% profit after expenses and everything year over year. They tell me recession. I'm like, when? But it's because I learned that. So what are some of the tips that people can possibly use to start? And I love that expression, friend raise. I love it. What are some tips or advice you could give people on just how to achieve that when they meet somebody? How can they possibly start the conversation, their follow-ups, or what advice do you have for people to cultivate that?
Well, yeah, it really, like you say, it really comes down to building a relationship. And when I meet people at events or I meet them online, I try to take the conversation in a direction that's really asking them questions, trying to learn more about them. You and I have been to enough events where someone's come up to us and they immediately start going to their sales pitch, and my eyes start to roll in the back of my head, and I kind of fade out. But the reality is, I want to learn about the people I'm working with, because I want to do business with people I know and people that I respect. And the other thing too is that you have to be constantly cultivating. There's, for me, even though I've been in business for 30 years and quite frankly have thousands of investors in my network and tens of thousands of entrepreneurs that I've worked with and interacted with, I'm still constantly meeting new people and dialoguing with them. I give you an example. Last year I made a mission that I had about 4,000 Facebook friends, and I realized I probably knew maybe 300 of them very well. And so last year, I went to Facebook friends and I took someone out to lunch or coffee twice a week for an entire year, someone I didn't know. And just to establish that relationship. And I wasn't there for an agenda. I wasn't there to sell. I was really just to get to know them, because I found in my experience is that if someone trusts you, they'll do business with you, but they'll also recommend other people to do business with you. I've had several instances where someone who had no capacity to work with me referred me to someone who had enormous capacity to work with me. And so it's really about consistently, I like to say I'm a collector of people, but probably more closely defined, I'm a collector of relationships.
I love it. And I have a friend, Cammie, and she kind of sums that up and says, plant seeds, not leads, you know what I mean? So that's excellent. I love it. And you, like you said, I agree with you. You have to consistently just keep doing that and growing. And you never know. You never know who you're sitting next to. And you never know when something will turn into something. I just was on a plane maybe a year ago, flying back from somewhere, and a person I was sitting next to was flying into Worcester, Mass, to go to a meeting, and him and three of his people who he works with, but they were all sitting separately. So he was sitting next to me. We started talking, and he heard about my business and gave me his information, and we ran some stuff for him and gave him some advice on how he could improve it. And then it was like last week, 10 days ago, he actually contacted me after so much time, and we went to contract. So you never know. Something isn't necessarily about right then and there. And I think some ways today that it's really not about competition anymore. Some of my best referral partners are other people who are in the same industry as I am, but don't do one or more of my services, and they'll either white label it and have me do it for them and their clients, or just, sub it out to us, and then we will vice versa. How do you feel about that, about the world of competition now? Do you find that there's more collaboration and more opportunities for people to work together than just to see each and every person who might do something similar to them as competition, and they need to stay away from them?
No, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously there's all of us have competition, but the reality is none of our competition do everything the exact same way for the exact same industry or the exact same stage of companies. So I work with a number of people that, some of the venture capital firms that I've worked with in the past, sometimes the deals are, quite frankly, too small for them, and they hand them down to me. And in some cases, the deals are too big for me, and I hand them up to them. And so the reality is it just keeps that, camaraderie going. So absolutely, and you even mentioned, that the fact that you had gotten some business just by establishing a relationship. I tell the story often when I speak. When I was 24 years old and I was a new retail stockbroker, I had some woman come into the office, and she was I was broker of the day. So basically I had to take on anyone who came in. I spent 2 hours with a nice old lady, and she gave me a $2,000 investment, which, quite frankly, didn't really cover my time. And at first, all the other brokers in the office were laughing at me until 2 weeks later, she brought her daughter into the office, who was then an executive at Genentech, a leading biotech company, and became an 8-figure client. So you never know, and I think you treat everybody the same. I forget who it was, but you want to treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO.
I love it. Good stuff. All right. So if you mentioned earlier about the different types of angel investors and, the fast pitch and these different, can you give us maybe a different idea, even though they're different names, what is it that they primarily focus on?
Well, it really depends. I've been doing these events for about 8 years now, and I really did this, quite frankly, to put entrepreneurs in front of people they wouldn't normally get a chance to meet. And the investors really range from some of the top venture capital firms in the Bay Area to large angel groups to high net worth individual investors. You find that a lot of these earlier stage companies, they're probably too early for a venture capital firm and probably too early for a large angel investor. But there's always a strategic investor or an individual investor that's accredited that may like the idea and may be passionate about it. So what we try to do is make sure there is a mix of investors that identify all of those ranges. And we try to be somewhat industry agnostic, meaning that we have investors that invest in technology, investors that are in retail, biotech, and other industries. But the goal, as I mentioned before, was really to connect with the entrepreneur or the startup with the most ideal investor for their industry and their stage of company.
I love it. So people have multiple opportunities to participate and to possibly get in front of somebody depending upon where they are at that time. Excellent. So we have about 10 minutes left, Scott, and I kind of want to focus on, whatever it is you want to say and have the people know. Can we first give your contact information, and we'll start there.
Sure. Yeah, you can obviously reach us online at blackdogventurepartners.com. At Black Dog CEO is pretty much where you'll find me on social media, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And then you can obviously there's a contact information there, or you can reach out to me via email, scott@blackdogventurepartners.com.
Excellent. And I just want to let all the listeners know this episode, as well as all episodes, is archived. So if you're unable to write that information down, it will be up on the radio station, WCAP 980 AM's website, as well as my website, rcstechnologysolutions.com, in about 2 or 3 days. So you can go back and listen and learn and also get Scott's information. Scott, so in this let's say last 8 minutes or so, 9 minutes, what can you impart to people about anything related to venture capital, angel capital, how to put their packages together, how to talk to people, anything that you think can help people at this point?
Well, there's a lot of resources out there, and obviously I'd be happy to send any of those to any of the listeners, but it really comes down to making sure you have a clear understanding of your business, your opportunity, how you make money, how you're going to market your business, and from an investor standpoint, how you're going to exit your business. So again, it starts with really conceptualizing and building that idea. Secondly, you need to build a team around you. I realized early in my life that I was good at a couple of things, but not good at everything. And I think it's very important when you're trying to grow a company that you make sure you build a team around you. People that are good at technology, people that are good at marketing, finance, accounting, legal. Make sure you have your team in place because, in real estate, a lot of people say it's location, location, location. When you're an investor, it's management, management, management. So, build your team. And then obviously once you build your team, you've got to work on putting together your presentation. And when you're presenting your company, you really have to look at the 3 people that you're going to try to present to. 1 is going to be your ultimate customer and how you're going to present to them. 2, potential partners and advertisers or sponsors and how you're going to present to them. And 3, the area that I focus on is how you're going to present your company to investors. So I think it's very important that once you have established your idea, have vetted it through your team and your advisors, then begin to conceptualize and put together an executive summary, which is a 1 or 2 page overview of what you're trying to accomplish. And then put together what's called a pitch deck. This allows you to really expand on and share your vision, your passion, your mission, and your goals with potential investors. And then it's really, you got to get your presentation down. I work with companies all the time to make sure that they have a 1-minute elevator pitch, a 5-minute presentation, and a 20 to 30-minute presentation ready to go. Because you never know when those opportunities are going to come up. And then, honestly, just get out there. There are hundreds of events throughout the year where you can actually interact with investors, interact with other entrepreneurs, and learn from them. There's things called accelerators and incubators where you can actually get advice and counsel to help you grow your company throughout the country. I work with several of them. And then it's really just getting out there and getting in front of people. The reason, like I mentioned before, I put together these events is that it really gives entrepreneurs an opportunity to take everything they've learned and everything they've practiced and put it into action. I'm a big believer that you can practice forever, but you have to eventually play a game. That's what I tell my 2 sons who are athletes, that you've got to get out there and just take risks. And I think entrepreneurs are risk takers, and you have to take those risks on a daily basis. And then that's more or less the parting thoughts that I would, to any entrepreneur. Get your idea fully vetted and conceptualized through your team and your advisors. Make sure you can properly present what you're trying to accomplish to your targets, investors in my particular case, and then get out there and dialogue and interact and be a part of your local and national entrepreneur and startup community.
I love it. I hope the listeners just realize they just got, like almost 3 decades worth of, incredible experience, knowledge, and advice summed up. So if this is anything you or someone you needs, somebody needs, please reach out both and let them know about this so they can contact Scott. Scott, one thing I wanted to ask you, though, is sometimes when people go into business, their end goal is they should definitely focus on where they want to end up and how they're going to get there. But should they stay be able to pivot? So if somebody went to an event and one of the investors said, and asked them to modify something, should they be open to suggestions, or just from people with years of experience on how maybe not just to modify their presentation, but how to possibly modify whatever it is they're doing, so don't get so stuck in what they feel and think, but just be receptive to advice? Is that something that you think people should also?
Well, absolutely. You mentioned a couple of these examples in the past. Blockbuster failed to pivot, and they're out of business. Hotels are being disrupted through Airbnb because they didn't pivot. The transportation industry is now being disrupted because they didn't pivot with the likes of Uber, Lyft, Bird, and others. So I think you have to be aware of the changing environment. For myself, I've had to change what I've done and some of my focus over the years. So I think, the industry will tell you that you need to change. The economy will tell you that you need to change. And, smart people will tell you where you need to change. And I think it's always important to be receptive to being different, but also being flexible.
I love it. And I think that's so huge, too, because if you don't, one thing I tell my clients is you have to constantly be innovating. You have to constantly make your product and service better, because if you don't, if you're not making your own product obsolete, somebody else will. So you have to constantly be innovating and growing and changing and seeing. A short example is my own business. I used to do a lot of managed service, and then about 8 years ago, I was still doing the online marketing, but then I saw everything was just getting smaller and more powerful, and it was cheaper for these companies to just buy a $400 desktop, clone the hard drive, and when something went wrong, just replace it. Literally, just have somebody, change out the wires in the back and put the monitor on it. Than it was to pay somebody $165 to come in and to fix it, just replace it. And so that's when I kind of went just straight into the online marketing and. Fully, but so I had to innovate. So, and everything the other companies you just mentioned. So, and I'm, nothing compared to those companies, but you have to see your industry. You have to see where your industry is going to be years out and make your plans and pivots appropriately. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
I love it. Now, do you have any parting tips or gifts? Do you have an ebook or something you'd like people to go and possibly look at to get some more info?
I offer a free 30-minute phone consultation with anybody who wants to reach out to me. So if they go to my website through this radio program, mention you, they get 30 minutes of my time, number one. Secondly, we actually host a number of angel venture capital pitch events, as I mentioned before. We have our next one with City Summit coming up in San Diego, actually this Thursday and Friday. And then we have events in Phoenix, Los Angeles, and San Francisco scheduled for January through March. If anyone mentions the radio program when they register, I will give them a discount also.
That's huge. And I know the one we just did in San Francisco, and thank you so much for that. The one we just did in San Francisco, I spoke to a couple of the presenters, and some of them came, some came from Los Angeles, some came from actually outside the state. So even if people aren't in the cities that you just mentioned, they can still contact you and either attend one or more of those events, space permitting, or some otherwhere else in the world. They don't have to literally be in the same state as you or these events. Am I correct?
No, absolutely. We have entrepreneurs and investors from around the country and around the world attend our events. So I think money doesn't have a map. I think you can really find capital everywhere. So the reality is, obviously, even for our event in San Diego coming up, we have companies coming in from throughout California and several other states, and actually Canada. So absolutely, I would encourage anybody, if you're out there trying to raise capital, you just need to be where the capital is.
I love it. And so that's cool. Just like this radio show, the station's in Boston area, Lowell, and you're in Phoenix, and I'm in San Francisco right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in San Diego in a couple of days. And this event that was out here was amazing. So thank you for that. And is there a parting word at all, Scott?
Just don't give up. If you're passionate about your dream, find people that are passionate to share the dream with you.
Excellent. And I want to thank you very much, Scott Kelly. Everyone, you've been listening to Scott Kelly, who is the CEO of Black Dog Venture Partners. You can reach them at www.blackdogventurepartners.com. If you'd like more information on his entire business, I'm sure there's information there as well. If you want to find out more about the VCFastPitch.com, you would go there, VCFastPitch.com. Feel free to go there. And again, you've been listening to Scott Kelly on the Internet Marketing and Business Solutions radio show with Ron Couming of both RCS Technology Solutions as well as RCS Online Solutions, where we help business owners and entrepreneurs attract, convert, and retain their ideal customers and clients to achieve even greater success. Hold on for our next section, where we'll be talking about 5 tips to increase your video marketing in 2019.